Hey YouTube, Ben Benson here. Hope you're doing well. So just want to welcome you to the channel. For those of you that don't know me and my channel, who I am, I'm an ex-CEO. I'm the founder of Performance Capability, business you're going to hear a lot more about, over the coming weeks and months, and really excited to share this message with you today. I want you to think about this for a second. Think about this. Every time life knocks you flat, it's not just pain you're facing, it's literally a test. And that test shows up as what I like to call the 5 choices or 5 doors. Most people don't even realize that they're standing in a hallway of decisions. They just, stumble through the nearest door, and they do that without even thinking. And that's why often they stay stuck. So what if you stopped? What if you looked at each door and realized that only one of them, maybe 2 of them, lead to the growth, strength, financial freedom, everything that you say you're committed to? Which one would you step through, and which ones have you been walking through out of habit up until now? The 5 doors. Let's run the intro.
Hold your breath, all the moves we're making.
So here's a question for you. When life barges in unannounced and everything that you thought was certain, suddenly changes or shifts, what's the first instinct? Do you fight it? Do you freeze? Do you run? Do you evade? Do you lean in? That single decision is the fork in the road that will shape whatever happens next in your life. It can be a sudden phone call that changes everything. It can be a conversation that you never expected to have, or that quiet moment in your car when reality hits you like a wave. Something you thought that was certain is all of a sudden gone forever. It's jarring, it's unfair, and it's also part of the universal human experience. We can't schedule our challenges, but we can decide how we meet them, how we show up to them. We've all been there, moments where the weight of the world feels like it's pressing on your chest, where your heart is racing, your mind is screaming for a way out. You've been there, I've been there. In fact, every person that you admire has probably also been there too. The real question isn't whether life will hit you, because it will. And it often will hit you harder than you expect. The question is, when it does, which door will you choose to go through? What choice will you make to make yourself stronger or stay stuck? So today, what I want to do is give you 5 doors, or 5 distinctive paths or ideas, choices, if you will, that appear when adversity knocks, okay? How you respond to these in the moment and how you deal with them is ultimately going to shape your character, your destiny over time. You've walked through some of these doors before, maybe without even realizing it, and every time you choose, you reinforce a pattern that either will limit you or lift you. Okay, so door number 1, you run away. Let's be honest, sometimes the first impulse is to escape, the instinct to bolt in the opposite direction of the problem and pretend it's not happening. See, we fill our calendars with meaningless tasks or distract ourselves with anything that will numb the discomfort or pain. You've seen it. Someone loses a job, and instead of updating their CV or resume or calling a mentor, they spend 2 weeks in a haze of Netflix and takeouts, right? Convincing themselves they're just taking a break. Or the relationship starts to get tough, and instead of leaning into the discomfort of a hard conversation, they bury themselves in work, in hobbies, social media, hoping that the problem will magically solve itself while they're looking the other way. See, here's the truth. Running away can give you a temporary sense of relief, like a cool breeze on a hot day, but it never gives you the resolve. It never delivers closure your heart and mind are truly craving. It's like putting a bucket under a leaking roof without fixing the roof. Sure, the bucket catches the water for now, but eventually it overflows. The wood rots and the damage spreads. The problem is it's still dripping in your life silently whilst you're looking the other way. And here's the part most people miss. When you run away, life tends to chase you. The same challenge will show up again and again and again, often in a different disguise, until you face it. You change your job, you change your city, you change your relationship, but if you don't deal with the core issue, it packs its bags and follows you right out the door. All right, door number 2. You stay and play the victim. This is a big one. A place many people know too well. We've all visited this room before, maybe for just a few minutes, maybe for months at a time. It's that mental space where you slump into the chair, you fold your arms and let the frustration take over while a heavy wet blanket stays on top of you, and you replay the story again and again over and over in your head, rehearsing the pain as if the more you tell it, the more justified it becomes. You find yourself saying, why me? You know, life's unfair. It always happens to me and never to someone else. They always get the breaks. And the more you repeat it, the more the room seems to close in until it feels like the walls are lined with your own disappointments. See, I had a friend who was passed over for a promotion and it hit him hard. Instead of asking what skills he could sharpen or seeking honest feedback from his manager, he quickly decided that the company didn't value him. You know, from that point on, every coffee break for the next 6 months turned into a complaint session, a ritual of rehearsing unfairness, recruiting sympathy, and reinforcing his own sense of being stuck. The problem is what we call victimhood, and it's addictive. It's an emotional sugar rush. It gives you an immediate hit of self-justification, but it drains you over time. It feeds on your attention and multiplies with every retelling of the story. The more you feed it, the less energy you have to actually solve anything. And the more it cements your identity around that specific pain. Being a victim keeps you trapped in the chapter of what happened, rereading it endlessly instead of stepping into the role of author or your experience and writing the story of what happens next. Okay, so door number 3, make space for it. This is a little bit different. A quieter, more intentional approach. See, making space doesn't mean pushing the pain into a corner, pretending it's not there, or painting it with fake positivity. It's about pausing long enough to actually notice it and let it sit in front of you without any judgment. Invite it to a real conversation. You know, it's giving the challenge a chair at the table, looking in its eye and saying, all right, I see you. I know you're there. Let's figure this out. Let's work it out. You need to think about a storm for a moment. You can't stop it, but you can prepare your home. You can shut the windows. You know, you can make provisions. Making space means acknowledging your emotions without letting them hijack you. Sometimes it's as simple as, you know, leaving in the morning for work and you hit a wall of traffic at 8 a.m., for instance, rush hour. You can lay on the horn, you can shout at the windscreen, you can let your blood pressure boil before you've even got to work, or you can make space for it. You can accept it. This is where I am. I can't change it. I can choose my response. Maybe I can turn on an inspiring podcast, or maybe I can think about some nice music that I want to listen to, or maybe I just want to breathe a bit more deeply in that specific moment. I've coached business owners who were in a similar situation, financially free-falling. You know, their first move was to throw a pity party, sell everything. Instead of stopping, breathing, saying, yes, I accept this situation, I recognize what's happening, I'm going to decide the next step. All right, option 4, or door number 4, get in real close. I call this going to the edge, because most people stop far short of it. They avoid thinking about the worst case scenario because they fear it will break them. But the opposite is often true. When you go to the edge, when you stare that worst possible outcome in the face and break it down and get knowledgeable over its smallest details, then it loses its power. This is where the gold is, the hidden treasure most people never dig for. When you lean into the problem, leaning in so close that you can almost feel its breath, you begin peeling back the layers you didn't even know existed. You start discovering the truth behind it. The patterns, the lessons, and the hidden solutions disguised as obstacles. Going to the edge means asking what the absolute worst case scenario is. What's the worst that could happen? Could I survive it? What else can I do? You can play it out and make it granular. You make the conversation, you find the facts, you get informed, and here's the liberating part. You get comfortable accepting the outcome, whatever it is. Because 99% of the time, reality will hit you harder than you expect. But if you know, and if you're ready, if you recognize it, you can make a difference. If your car starts making funny noises, you can lift the hood, you can get in close, you can understand what's going on. You know, turning up the radio might mask it for a while, the sound, but the car's still going to have the problem. Popping the hood, leaning in and getting curious, that's when you can actually start to diagnose the problem. Understand what's going on and take steps to fix it before it gets worse. In life, maybe that's asking, why am I reacting this way to this situation? What's this situation trying to teach me? See, one of my clients went through 3 failed partnerships in a row, each ending in bitterness and mistrust. The easy story that he told himself was, people can't be trusted. But it was neat and simple. You know, it didn't look under the hood. What was the real truth? When we go to the edge together, we examined every single situation and we recognized that the pattern was that he was avoiding tough conversations with his partners, leaving it too late until situations became, untenable. That insight didn't just save his business by changing how he handled future partnerships. It saved his next marriage by teaching him to face tension early and talk it through before it exploded. Now he understands the value of what it means to get in close and go to the edge. All right, door number 5, you take full responsibility. This one is significant. Responsibility is not blame. Blame looks backwards, responsibility looks forwards. And here's the deeper truth. Responsibility is really, if you think about it, responsibility. Look at the word. Break it down. The ability to choose your response. When you take full responsibility, you give yourself options. You stop being a prisoner of circumstance and start being the author of your actions. When you take full responsibility, you reclaim your power. It's like saying, I can't control the storm, but I can control the sails. I can't control the traffic, but I can control when I choose to leave the house. See, every great turnaround story in business, sports, relationships, from underdog to complete comebacks to historic wins, they all start right here, in the moment when someone stops pointing the fingers and starts looking back at themselves. When you own your part, you swing open the door to possibility, because ownership creates the space for solutions, innovations, and real transformation. I remember coaching a young athlete who kept saying his coach was biased and he didn't think he liked him, insisting that no matter what he did, the coach would always overlook him. I stopped him and asked, maybe that's true, but what's the thing that you can do to make that situation irrelevant? That question hit him in his chest and he started to think differently. He started showing up earlier, staying later, listening more, evaluating his weaknesses and looking for ways to make them become strengths. Before long, he was outperforming everyone around him. And even the coach who he thought was against him couldn't deny his progress. He earned his spot not because the circumstances changed, but because he had changed his approach. That's the magic of responsibility. It strips power and transforms obstacles into stepping stones. A high impact life is going to knock you down, sometimes gently, sometimes like a freight train. And it'll leave you disorientated, grasping for air. It's not personal, but it's life's way of holding up a mirror and asking, what are you really made of? What's your core when the comfort is stripped away? The real question is, will you run? Will you stay stuck in the victim's chair, or will you make space for it? Will you go to the edge and get curious about it, or will you take responsibility and write the next chapter for yourself? I'll tell you this, the people you admire, the people whose lives you look up to, they've all walked through door number 5. Not because it's easy, because it's the only door that leads out of the building, the destination that you really want. And here's the truth, you can walk through it right now today, because responsibility isn't something you earn, it's something that you choose. And when you do, you become truly, literally response-able. So let me give you 3 action steps to take to identify your default door. Take a quiet moment to look back at the last 3 big challenges you faced. Write them down. Did you run? Did you play the victim? Did you make space? Did you go to the edge? Or did you take responsibility, full responsibility? Notice the door that you instinctively reach for. Awareness is powerful. Once your default pattern is recognized, you gain the power to choose differently the next time. And the next time it comes knocking, you'll be able to open the right door. Okay, here's what I want you to do this week. I want you to practice going to the edge. Pick this week, pick one problem you've been avoiding and play out the worst case scenario in detail. Write it down, get granular, get specific, and imagine how you'd handle that situation if it was to happen. Get comfortable with the idea that you could survive even the toughest situation. Then once the fear is lost, grip it, plan, and make a courageous response. Choose one door consciously this week. When a challenge pops up, pause, take a breath, and deliberately choose which of the 5 doors you'll walk through instead of defaulting to habit. Write it down if you need to and act on it. This single act of intention and choice doesn't just shape the outcome in the moment, it builds the muscle of self-mastery that will shape every future outcome that you go through. I hope you got some value out of this. Ben Benson, Performance Capability. If you want to read more about what I do, you can go to www.bensonspeaks.com or performancecapability.com, and or you can look me up on LinkedIn. I look forward to seeing you next time. Stay safe and look after yourself.